You ever feel like someone else is controlling you? Recent events show that this is happening, as people without recognizable faces control how we live. The result? Our children's education is harmed by false science and our freedom is limited. It's alarming how the world that we use to trust is falling apart right in front of us. So, let's stop and consider the world that we want for our children. Do we want an existence controlled by unknown entities making decisions about our day-to-day lives, or do we crave a say in our own destiny? Feels like we're mere spectators in our lives, expected to stay content with this nothingness. Enter the World Health Organization, a global powerhouse, currently exhibiting signs of disturbing control. Their obscure policies hint at a deep-seated corruption and a world where heavy restrictions rule and personal liberty is non-existent. However, hope isn't lost. Johnsons.com is on a mission to expose these truths. While mainstream media remains oblivious, we pledge to keep you informed. The WHO's apparent aim to seize control, enforcing autocratic rules without consent, bears the hallmarks of dictatorship. On a recent episode of Tucker Carlson's show, he and renowned neuroscientist Andrew Huberman discussed this issue. They exposed the WHO's worrying shift towards becoming an authoritative entity, highlighting the importance of public awareness and action. Both the WHO and the World Economic Forum are strategizing to curtail our national and individual sovereignty. Decisions by the World Health Assembly, a crucial decision-making body, are proceeding without public input. Feels like we're on the brink of another lockdown, reminiscent of previous oppressive measures. Current international laws reveal that the instrument of health regulations is binding for 196 countries, whereas any new pandemic treaty requires parliamentary approval. Yet the UK Parliament won't review or vote on any approved amendments. Such unchecked decision-making breeds mistrust. Even more concerning is the lack of any official announcements from mainstream media or the government. It feels like only platforms like ours are striving to share this information. In his conversation with Carlson, Huberman emphasized the potential dangers that such shifts in power and policy pose. The removal of the clause requiring the WHO to respect human rights and the possible enforcement of binding emergency guidelines are deeply concerning. Doesn't this whiff a bit of a dystopian future? This potential power slide begins with something as simple as a mask mandate. However, it could evolve into more oppressive measures, such as mandatory vaccinations. The possibility of further restrictions is alarming, and we should ignite concern. The unchecked authority vested in the WHO's Director General is equally disturbing. Their ability to declare public health emergencies based on perceived threats, not actual harm, can severely limit our basic freedoms. The same individual is now discussing climate change as our next impending crisis. We've heard the world-ending prophecies due to climate change for years, but the real menace appears to be the erosion of our basic freedoms under the shadow of these perceived crises. As Huberman and Carlson rightly pointed out, we gotta value our personal freedom, our agency as we navigate the slippery slope towards an uncertain future. Think about it. Back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, the big goal was to cool down the world. Global cooling was our rallying cry. Now, today, we hear about the dangers of a warming planet from people who were once cheerleaders of cooling. It's a little weird, right? So I guess the goal is still to cool down the world now, but it's different. But hey, there's more anyways. Despite a 98% drop in climate-related deaths this century, and despite the fact that the greenhouse effect's influence lessens over time, not grows, some folks still insist that we are in a climate crisis. Why don't we talk about that more? Well, it seems like we come to the right place, where disagreements and debates are frowned upon. Knowledge isn't born from agreement. It's created from questioning, discussing, and challenging the status quo. That was the bleeding heart of the Enlightenment period. Fast forward to today, and it's like we're watching the plot of a dystopian novel unfold. The World Health Organization, or WHO, is seeking to suppress those who disagree with it. They are proposing measures that could massively curtail our freedoms, like imposing lockdowns, travel restrictions, medical exams, and more. It's an attack on human rights and medical ethics, and it definitely begs the question, who gets to decide what is best for us? But it doesn't stop there. They're also looking to implement a global health education system, which could enable countries to enforce travel restrictions through vaccine certifications, recovery certificates, and other paperwork. Alongside this, there's a push to stifle free speech and increase censorship. Dissenting voices against official governments or WHO guidance could be silenced. You might think we gotta band together to combat a global pandemic or virus, right? And yeah, no, I agree, and international cooperation is vital, but what I see here is darker, and it's far more chilling. Media blackout on this topic adds to the unsettling atmosphere. Without debate and public scrutiny, we might just end up giving unelected bureaucrats power to control our lives in unprecedented ways. They could tell us when we can or can't go outside, when we need to wear masks, and ultimately, they can take away our freedom and our autonomy. If something smells like tyranny, if something looks like tyranny and sounds like tyranny, it's probably tyranny. To top it off, powerful groups like the World Economic Forum are backing this scary WHO power grab. Now that should worry everybody, not just those in the United Kingdom. We gotta question if we want to live in a world where we're constantly told what to do, with no say in the matter. It's a worrying time indeed. But you know what's scarier? Indifference. We need more people to become aware of these threats, and to resist them, so please, spread the word. More people need to wake up to what's going on, and it starts with you. The question now is, do you prefer to stay passive, or do you want to fight for your personal freedom? In a recent episode, neuroscientist Andrew Huberman and TV host Tucker Carlson talked about a horrible situation in the Democratic Republic of Congo that involved taking advantage of people in a very personal way. They focused on the story of Shekinah, 25-year-old nurse's assistant from northeastern Congo, on their shows. Shekinah detailed an alarming proposition from a WHO doctor who offered her double her salary but demanded intimate favors in exchange. The alleged offer was Boubacar Diallo, a Canadian doctor who is purportedly well acquainted with WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus. According to Shekinah, Diallo had subjected multiple women to similar solicitations, indicating a pattern of predatory behavior. The spotlight on these shocking allegations has turned brighter due to the investigative efforts of the Associated Press. Huberman and Carlson leveraged this AP report, which affirmed Shekinah's claims and indicated an unsettling level of awareness and inaction within WHO's leadership ranks. The investigation pointed to discouraged whistleblowers, included a WHO worker and 3 Ebola experts in Congo who were discouraged from delving into Diallo's alleged misconduct. Huberman and Carlson emphasized the significance of a developing story, revealing that senior officials at the World Health Organization were informed about these claims in 2019. And this revelation contradicted the statements by Tedros and Dr. Michael Ryan, WHO's emergency director, who claimed that they had no knowledge of such allegations. An Associated Press report uncovered a different narrative that challenged these denials, leading to concerns about the WHO's organizational culture and how open they are with information. 2 doctors, Diallo and Dr. Jean-Paul Ngandu, emerged from the shadows of anonymity as their names were flagged to the WHO for alleged intimate misconduct. A young woman stepped forward, accusing Ngandu of impregnating her. A notarized agreement obtained by the AP served as damning evidence, with Ngandu committing to cover the woman's medical bills and the purchase of her land. Shockingly, 2 WHO staff members, including a manager, witnessed the contract, further implicating the organization in the scandal. These shocking revelations underscored the vast chasm that still exists despite the progress that was made by the Me Too movement. The UN's report of a notable rise in intimate abuse allegations globally serves as a stark reminder that the fight against misconduct is not over. Diallo and Ngandu both maintained their innocence, while Diallo denied ever offering a job in exchange for intimately harassing anybody. The AP's extensive investigation involved examining private emails, legal documents, and recordings of internal meetings. Numerous WHO workers and Ebola officials in Congo were interviewed, painting a rather disturbing picture that contradicted the public claims of the WHO and demonstrated its failure to address intimate abuse during the Ebola outbreak. The scandal caught the attention of Andrew Huberman, a neuroscientist, as well as obviously Tucker Carlson, a political commentator who publicly exposed the failings of WHO's management. They emphasized the importance of maintaining high ethical standards within organizations like the WHO and questioned its ability to effectively combat intimate abuse. The shocking revelations echoed throughout the global community, prompting a chilling question. How deep does the iceberg go? Dr. Michael Ryan, the head of WHO's emergency response, expressed during internal meetings that these instances of intimate misconduct were not isolated incidents, but they were just the tip of the iceberg lurking beneath the surface. In 2019, an email was sent to Dr. Michael Yao, the WHO's emergency operations manager, expressing concern about Diallo's behavior. The sender emphasized that such inappropriate intimate harassment and bullying tarnished the sacrifices and efforts of those working to combat the Ebola crisis in Congo. Despite Yao's assurances that the matter would be addressed, a subsequent internal investigation by the WHO yielded no evidence to support the allegations. This lack of action was largely due to the fact that the accusers weren't contacted for interviews, calling into questions the organization's commitment to actually addressing such grave situations. Publicly, however, a different narrative was presented. Photos on the WHO website depicted Tedros, Yao, and Diallo casually interacting, possibly taken during one of Tedros' 14 visits to Congo during the Ebola outbreak. This inadvertently validated suspicions about Diallo's connections and charisma within the organization. As more of the scandal unfolded, one thing became crystal clear. A thorough investigation into these allegations was absolutely necessary to ensure justice for the victims and closure for all that were involved. It was high time for influential global institutions to work towards creating an environment that not only served the vulnerable, but also safeguarded them from all forms of abuse. The fight against misconduct has to continue, because true healing can only come with the assurance of justice. In an unassuming setting at the Hotel Akapi in Beni, the young woman accompanied her aunt and, escorted by 2 armed police officers, walked in with determination etched on their faces. The target was Mori Keita, the outbreak manager for the WHO. Keita later recounted the encounter in an email to Dr. Michael Yao, stating, "A colleague has impregnated a girl from Beni." This was a stark introduction to the complaint lodged against Dr. Jean-Paul Ngandu, painting him as the perpetrator behind the young woman's ordeal. The family's heartfelt appeal expressed concern that Ngandu would abandon the girl, leaving her alone to raise the child. They made a simple yet profound plea to ask the WHO officials to cover the young woman's medical bills and provide her funds to acquire a piece of land. Keita felt that Yao should be made aware of the situation and sought guidance on managing this troublesome issue. Within a week, a notarized contract was signed by Ngandu and the young woman. The agreement stipulated that Ngandu would provide her with a monthly sum of $100 until the birth of her child, cover her pregnancy-related medical expenses, and help her with the purchase of a plot of land. Witnessing this contract were Achille Mboko, an employee of the WHO's Human Resources Department, and Keita himself. Ngandu, however, claimed innocence, asserting that the child was not his and the contract was a private matter. He stated that he agreed to the terms to protect his reputation and that of the organization that he represented. The young woman, perhaps overwhelmed by the situation, chose to remain silent. So it remains uncertain whether Yao, who was later promoted to head of the Strategic Health Operations Division at WHO Geneva, followed proper protocol by reporting these abuse allegations to his superiors. This silence raises questions about the organizational culture within the WHO and its approach to handling such serious accusations. The situation brings into focus an investigation initiated by Tedros 8 months earlier, specifically looking into the allegations of intimate misconduct during the Ebola outbreak in the Congo. During a town hall meeting, Dr. Michael Ryan candidly admitted to the organization's long negligence regarding such issues. While admitting to past mistakes is the first step forward towards rectification, it also raises questions about whether more could have been done to prevent such incidents. Which brings us back to Shekina, the young woman who alleged intimate misconduct by her coworker Diallo. She endured countless unspeakable encounters with him due to her financial constraints. Even after ending their relationship, Diallo persisted in asking for nude pictures, leaving her feeling violated and distressed. Like many victims, she yearned for justice, expressing her wish for Diallo to be held accountable for his alleged intimate misconduct of numerous women in Beni. But this tale of exploitation does not end with Shekina, unfortunately, or the young woman from Beni. Temo Wakinavalu, a doctor from Fiji, faced public accusations of intimate misconduct, marking the 3rd formal complaint against him. These charges were brought forward on various social media platforms, including Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, as well as in a confidential report from a WHO employee. One incident, in January 2017, involved a friend of a confidential source who alleged that Wakanivalu intimately chased her at a business networking event. The incident was reported to the WHO's Integrity Hotline in Geneva, leading to an ongoing investigation. This complaint concluded with 2 other allegations against Wakanivalu. This issue gained significant public attention when renowned neuroscientist Andrew Huberman and political commentator Tucker Carlson highlighted the WHO's mishandling of intimate misconduct allegations on their respective platforms. These influential figures joined forces to demand transparency, just a little bit of accountability and some justice from the global health body. The multiple allegations against Wakinavalu warrant a deeper analysis of the systems and, well, the processes in place at the World Health Organization. It's pretty evident that injustice can't go unchecked, and the fight for accountability has to continue. Organizations like the WHO have got to step up. They got to address their shortcomings and protect their employees from all forms of abuse. Transformation is the only way forward into building a healthier, more equitable world. In recent developments, the World Health Organization found itself embroiled in yet another controversy surrounding allegations of intimate misconduct within its ranks, making headlines worldwide. Dr. James, a passionate advocate for workplace rights and gender equality, brought this story to light in an interview with the Financial Times. Although she refrained from sharing specific details about the investigative process, she emphasized the immense stress that she experienced. Despite her determined efforts to foster a secure, respected, and empowered atmosphere for women in the workplace, Dr. James soon realized that a quick resolution was very unlikely. She openly criticized Joaquin Evalu, a high-ranking official within the WHO, for alleged misconduct, but her cries for justice were met with silence. The WHO, citing respect for privacy and legal matters, chose to remain silent on the issue. Wow, surprise, surprise. Despite the Financial Times' persistent attempts to reach Joaquin Evalu, his responses remained vague and evasive. Intimate misconduct, a deeply uncomfortable subject, appeared to have found a breeding ground within the World Health Organization, particularly during times of crisis, such as the recent Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and etc. Stories of misconduct became distressingly frequent, stirring significant unease within the organization. Whistleblowing mechanisms within the WHO also faced criticism. Current and former employees, speaking anonymously, expressed discontent with the opaque reporting process, noting that the organization's initial instinct seemed to be protecting itself rather than its members during times of crisis. Amidst the storm, the WHO asserted that it had taken the survivors' painful experiences as a catalyst for change, initiating a transformation of its organizational culture. The organization openly acknowledged the slow pace of change, but remained committed to promptly investigating all reported cases and imposing strict consequences, including termination, on guilty parties. But that is not the whole story either. The World Health Organization is well known globally for providing guidance on public health issues. However, as is relatively apparent, it's not flawless, and certain controversies have tarnished its reputation. One shocking case is the opioid crisis. In 2011, WHO published guidelines suggesting that opioid painkillers were safe and they could be used widely. These were influenced by pharmaceutical companies like Purdue Pharma, who had a vested interest in selling more drugs. Surprise, surprise again. Many people believe that this contributed to the opioid crisis, where millions of people became addicted to these potent drugs, and a lot of people died. In 2009, WHO declared the H1N1 flu outbreak a pandemic, the highest level of alarm. Some accused them of overreacting, causing panic, and making countries spend billions on vaccines. Later, it came to light that some WHO advisors had financial ties to the drug companies making the vaccines. That seems to me like a little conflict of interest, huh? Perhaps the biggest scandal is WHO's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. In the early days of the outbreak, WHO was very slow to declare it a public health emergency of international concern, even though there were already cases in so many countries. Some accused WHO of being influenced by China, where the virus originated, to downplay the seriousness of the situation. When WHO finally did declare COVID-19 a pandemic, many countries were unprepared, and the virus had already spread widely very quickly. It resulted in global chaos and countless deaths. Later, an independent review criticized WHO for not acting sooner. These scandals have hurt WHO's reputation, and they've certainly damaged their credibility. It's clear that they need to do better. They gotta step up. They gotta be more independent and not let outside influences affect their decisions. Now that's vital, because in a global health crisis, we need a strong, reliable WHO that we can trust.